This is the fantastic Casio TS-150, released in 1989. Whilst I've got it on my wrist, I want to quickly show you something. If you just look up here inside the map as I press this button, you'll see a symbol appear and it will also disappear. That won't happen whilst I take it off. To find out more about that feature and more, stay tuned for the video. So here it is, the Casio TS-150, released in 1989, and this being the Japanese version with one very minor difference to the Casio TS-100, which I'll show you shortly. Condition for this one, first thing to point out is this here and here, this text, this world time thermometer text. If you've been looking to buy one of these, or if you have a look online right now, you'll find that around 80% of these watches that will have rubbed off, and about another 10% you'll hardly be able to see them. There maybe be one word left, or you can barely make out the text. This one is extremely rare because you can actually see the words pretty well. Yes, there's a little bit of mild wear, but you know, you can see them pretty clearly. And those of you who followed my channel before will also realise that this one is out of my private collection, and it took me a long time to actually to get hold of this one. So in addition to that, there is only very light signs of wear to the crystal. It's very hard to pick up on a camera. I try and show it using a light, but just very little scratches just from daily use. Strap, believed to be the original one, looks correct, and it also has the Casio just down here on the end. Looking at the rear, we can see it's Casio TS-150 with a module 865, and it's Japan down there at the bottom. So let's have a look at the face of the watch. So on the face, beneath the world time and Casio, we can see it's water resistant down to 10 bars, and beneath there we can see that there is a blue and red line, and that blue goes all the way from minus 10, 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and beneath there you can just about make out, if I can get the angle right, see that digital readout. Every 2 minutes the watch will store the temperature, and that's the one that's shown here. It's the last stored temperature, and it will display it in that lovely line that corresponds to the temperature. If I see it taking a reading, I'll try and point it out. Along the sides we've got adjust and temperature adjust, we've got our mode select button, our light, and our temperature button down there. So the minor difference between the 150 and the 100 is that you could push this button here and that would change between Celsius and Fahrenheit, of which this one only stays in Celsius. The next one to really show you on this front page is if you push this button here down at the bottom right, it will change between displaying the day of the week or displaying that last stored temperature. Of course, if you have it on here, you have that digital readout at the top, but I quite like having the temperature one showing. Now, right at the very beginning of the video, I showed you that adjust. Now, when you're in the day of the week mode or the normal mode and you enter the adjust and you use the top left to adjust and go into your normal kind of changing of the seconds and the date and that kind of thing, if you actually turn this onto the temperature mode and then you push this button, you'll see here that it isn't bringing that icon on. Sometimes you can trick it a little bit, so if I push it against my skin and it can kind of sense, it might come back on. But the point is, when it's not on your wrist and it hasn't warmed up, it won't always let you put that on the wrist setting on. In fact, let's try it again very quickly. And that was an example there. I literally had to put it on my wrist and wait a good couple of minutes before it would let me do it again. So if you try it when it's off your wrist, or even just put it on, there's something happening. It's obviously detecting a change in temperature and then going, ah, right, okay, it must be on the wrist. So that's how you change that. Now, I like to actually leave that off because, as you'll see in a moment, if you have the on the wrist selected, it won't store hourly temperature settings. So what you have is in your first page here, this is just stored temperature information depending on the location. So it's basically saying in London, in the 5th month of the year, to expect highs of 16 and lows of 8, and you can go through different places on the world and it will give you different highs and lows. So if you're in New York, it's saying 22 would be a high and 12 would be a low, and you can rotate through all of those. The second page is our local time setting. So what that does is every hour it will store the time. So if we go back through today, it's been a really warm day today, and you can see there it's just dropping to 17, dropping to 16, and bearing in mind this has been in the house, so it's not going to fluctuate as wildly. And then as we're kind of like 10 o'clock right now, if we got to wherever it was, these would now be looking at whatever that's the last time it's stored, you know, 9 or 10 o'clock. This would have been yesterday as it's ticked through. Now if you've got the on the wrist setting, it will just put a dash instead of a time, so that's why I prefer to have it off. So onto page 3, this is just basically your alarm and whether you have the hourly chimes. The page after that is the timer, and then the page after that is the stopwatch. So and then the only other thing I haven't really pointed out is up at the top, that's our light, and it's just a small bulb in the left hand side to light up the display. So in summary, this was the Casio TS150, very similar to the 100, the only difference being that you couldn't change between Celsius and Fahrenheit using the top right hand button. You have the display up at the top, which is the last stored temperature. You can alternate between temperature and day using that button there, and you have your light there. Adjust mode, first thing allows you to do the date and time, and then when it's in the temperature mode allows you to put the on the wrist setting on to compensate for body heat or not. And then you have your menu button that allows you to cycle through a forecast of the highs and lows around the world, your local temperature stored every hour, your alarm, your timer, and your stopwatch. A really fantastic watch, a unique watch. There aren't many of them with the thermometer built in like this. Released in 1989. If you liked this video, check out my Retro Casio playlist, or check out this video here for something that YouTube thinks you'll probably like from my channel. All the best, take care, and see you.